Hey guys, in today's video we would be covering top 10 most disturbing videos out there. Number 10. He was able to make contact with true crime author, Central and the former high school girlfriend. However, it was her belief that it was innocent, and that the crimes he discussed were merely lurid fiction, written by frustrated and framed ex-cop in a series of letters. He recounted the supposedly fictional murders from the perspective of a killer police officer. While Star 40s concluded he was responsible for the murders of 34 women,
he claimed the number was closer to 100. Further, he asserted his crimes had even impressed fellow serial killer Ted Bundy, who he is known to have spoken to.
And I'd like to do something with my life, that exemplifies the good as opposed to the bad. And I had hoped that killer fiction would have would be something that would be good. And it's kind of a mixed bag, actually. Some people say, yeah, it's really good. And then others say, it's really disgusting. And I say, yeah, you're right, it is. It's really disgusting. Does it make you want to hate murder? Or does it make you want to do murder? Does it really horrify you? Are you a little more cautious about picking up that hitchhiker? You girls, are you a little more cautious about who you pick up in the singles bar and take home? Like Mr. Goodbar, right? No, that's all I got, 34, But I never would say that. I discerned that he was concerned about the number. And it was my own way of needling him back by saying, I'm the best, Ted. You're gonna fry, and I'm gonna be here. And I'll be the best, just like they said. The number one. Mr. Stone had it all right. The best there ever was. And you're nothing.
Number 9. One of the most horrifying atrocities of the 20th century, and the heinous acts committed against the Jewish community, political and religious dissidents elected, the mentally ill, and the handicapped, have become the subject of many books, films, and programs over the years. Perhaps one of the best known and respected resources on this subject is called Landsman 9, and a half-hour documentary show, made over a period of 11 years. Crew interviewed survivors, bots, and eyewitnesses from the German death camps located in Poland. Once an interview took place in 1976, conducted with the...
So viele Tote, die man nicht wegräumen konnten, lagen tagelang ganze Haufen von Menschen vor der Gaskammer. Unter diesen Menschen war eine Kloak, 10 cm hoch, Blut, Würmer und Dreck. Ja.
Wo?
Vor der Gaskammer.
Ja.
Nicht wahr? Es wollte das niemand wegräumen. Die Juden, die haben sich lieber erschießen lassen und haben dort nicht arbeiten wollen.
Lieber erschießen
lassen. Es war fürchterlich, nur ihre eigenen Leute begraben und das ganze Ding sehen, von den Leichen ist das Fleisch.
Given Francis' tone, it's also easy to overlook the fact that he was one of the camp's enforcers who oversaw the systematic murder of hundreds of thousands of innocent people. He gave further distressing insight into the desperate acts undertaken by some of the victims, who fully understood what the purpose of the camp meant for them.
Die haben es geahnt. Sie waren vielleicht im Zweifel, aber manche werden es gewusst haben. Zum Beispiel waren jüdische Frauen, die haben ihren Töchtern in der Nacht die Adern geöffnet, sich selbst. Andere haben sich vergiftet.
Assurance that the subject would retain total anonymity. The estimated number of people killed in 1942 stands at 850,000 fans. Should always pay 500 Deutschmarks by client for this interview by 1979. Number 8. During the interview, a young woman named the grandmother had subjected her to counsel at the hands of a group of senior regiments.
Or smiling. Or having sex with another man.
When she was going through the details of the treatment, she had her job today. Listen to control the last part of the 60-minute podcast. titled Two Seasons Children with an alternative to his mother interested to respond to the fact that, while she was in the process of painful injuries or getting your data to record for Netflix, on the web to see calculated crimes occur in Australia.
Or smiling. Or having sex with another man.
What happened to the pregnancies, to the babies?
They were aborted by my nan or by one of the doctors at the house.
There were doctors there at that house?
Yeah, there was two, I think. Yeah, and a nurse.
What would happen to the fetuses, the unborn babies?
I used to be taken away most of the time, and one time baby was taken out of me and then killed in front of me because it was still alive.
And then, what would happen?
Well, after they killed it, they would eat it. Well, we were also made to eat it.
You were made to eat your own fetus?
Yeah.
The USA and the UK during the late 1980s reported incidents linked to sickness during the time. Perhaps one of the cases have been the McMartin preschool trial. This important position as the atomic ritual abuse taking place with the people of police and social workers has produced extraordinary claims about sexual activity. Number 7. Michael Bruce Ross was open to discuss his matters. However, compared to most killers, Ross was fascinated by the psychology sought to understand his behavior. Fielded. The Texas mentioned this was an act and other attempts at manipulation on the serial killer.
I'm a serial killer. I've killed 8 women, 6 in this state and 2 in New York. I'm not a big serial killer, by the way. 8 people, that's nothing. I mean, there's a lot of other guys you can go see. I saw this woman walking along the road with a stroller. I pulled off the side of the road. She came into the driveway, walked up the driveway. I was behind the house. So many times they're all spliced and it'd be going along and then jump. You would think that if you killed somebody that you would have that face imprinted in your mind and that you wouldn't be able to get it out of your mind. I don't have that. I never had that. The only face that I can see is what was in the newspapers a few days later when they were missing. You know, like the high school pictures. Anybody know where this girl is? Type thing. That's when I think of them. That's the picture I see. I don't see them as they were when I killed them. I can't see them as I was killing them. When I say I don't have any remorse, that doesn't mean that I don't have any regrets, that I don't wish that didn't happen, that there was something I could do to bring them back or anything. It's just that I don't have any feelings towards them. I feel like I should be tormented by what they looked like when I was killing them, or tormented by what was happening immediately before I killed them and stuff. And none of that's there. None of that's there at all.
Number 6. In 1975, Philadelphia arrested 39-year-old cop Joseph Kalinga terrorizing and sexually assaulting 4 families now. Answer: the murder of 3 people, including his own son. Perhaps even more disturbing is the fact that his 13-year-old son Michael had been his accomplice. Joseph had been a troubled individual since childhood, after being subjected to physical and emotional abuse at the hands of his adopted parents. He put these same practices into play when raising his own set of children to report to their father to police for mistreatment and abuse. He branded his daughter with a hot iron. Other children routinely stripped and beaten, though he was found guilty of child abuse in 1972. He was sentenced to 4 years probation and given mandatory psychiatric treatment. He disclosed to staff that he was on a defined mission, and that by formulating a special design of shoe, he could help people who suffered from, in his words, a malfunctioning brain. By 1974, Joseph was suffering from severe delusions. He held conversations with a disembodied head he referred to as Charlie. I proclaimed to have received orders from God to murder and mutilate young boys. At this point, enlisted the help of his son Michael, and a Jew tortured me. Unburdened 10-year-old was a colossal. Joseph's spiraling mental state that in to escalate his crime spree. He set fire to his home in order to obtain payment through his insurance company when he was successful in his claim. He took a $45,000 life insurance on his son Joey, anticipating the company would comply in pain. He drowned Joey and buried him into the pond, on a demolition site. But this time, the company was suspicious and refused to pay the policy between November 1974 and January 1975. Joseph Michael broke into 2 houses in Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Number 5. Tibet Thomas is interviewed by psychologist Dr. Kendra Gate, and her brother were adopted at age 19. Their mother died, and doctors discovered that their biological father was sexually abusing his young daughter. Residual mental trauma, psychopathic behavior, or adoptive parents, to fear for their safety, and that's the best brother John. Yeah, that gives me confidence to be revealed to a parent about a set of knives she has taken.
You ever stick pins in people? Who?
My brother.
Okay. Do you do it a little bit or a lot?
A lot.
Okay. And what are you trying to do to your brother?
Kill him.
Why do you want your brother to die?
Because I was hurt so bad, and I don't want to be around people.
Okay. Who else would you like to stick pins into?
Mommy and Daddy.
What would you like to have happen to them?
Die.
Tell me about the knives. Where did you get them?
From the drawer.
And where else? Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it.
I got them from the dishwasher.
What kind of knives?
Big sharp ones.
And what do you want to do with those knives?
Kill John and Mommy with them, and Daddy.
And when Mommy asks you about where the knives are, what do you say?
I don't know where they are.
Number
Filmmaker
4.
Ben Anthony.
This documentary is called Righteousness Church, that by Santa Monica, consisting of approximately 1,600 at the time, as I've instructed, Mexico, were attending suicide. On 31st of October, but also wanted to examine the dynamic between one and the other church members. Michael is really between Ben and Dave and his pastor, working with a church in 1987, and forming his own religion on complaints. You need to have vision for God, informing him that he was the Messiah. Michael came to you today and was curious to discover the truth on occasions to engage in improper conduct, presenting something in the age of sexual consent, and as Michael put to being naked with these young women, inquiry into why this occurred. Michael's answer on the parallels between South and medical profession is an institution.
Why did they want to lie naked with you on the bed, do you think, Michael?
Well, it was God. God came down on them and told them to do it.
Why naked?
Nakedness is another symbol of our relationship with God. We are naked and unashamed.
But of course they thought they were lying skin to skin with Father, in effect.
Yes.
Not with a man.
Yes. And I treated them that way. And so I treated them with the same respect and deference as if I'd been a physician, an MD who was doing surgery. You know, MDs are with naked people. And they do, MDs even put their fingers in women's sexual parts. And they call it pap smears or whatever else they do. But
you don't think there's a distinction between a doctor and yourself?
I would say no. I would say I would have more authority to touch the soul than an MD would. MDs aren't prepared for what I've had to do. An MD is far more likely to think of sex when he's doing something to a woman in her private parts than I am.
Number 3. Responsible for your young men and boys, John Wayne Gacy, who was also a compulsive liar. Despite mountains of evidence, humans hand he was innocent until his execution. Even in 1992, 2 years prior to his death, he brazenly lights repulsive Walter Jacobson about these crimes. Assistant, he was a victim as well.
Two and a half hours of clutching at straws, cunning and manipulative denials. But if you listen carefully, you catch him slipping up. About John Vukovic, for instance, his second victim.
What happened to, what happened in the Vukovic case? Where was he picked up, and how did he get to the house, and what happened with him?
I don't want to go into the other, the 5 that I know about. Just take it that I did. Vukovic is not one that I killed, so I don't know nothing about him.
Such carelessness is typical of a serial killer.
By the time they've committed 10 or 12, they are very, very laid back. By the time they commit 20, 15 or 20, they start getting careless, cavalier.
If it sounds familiar, it's because you've heard the experts say it about Jeffrey Dahmer. Gacy dislikes the comparison.
What do I think of Jeffrey Dahmer? I don't know the man.
Do you feel
Beyond that, I have no comment on Jeffrey Dahmer because I'm not Jeffrey Dahmer. And I would not, whether it's Berkowitz, whether it's Bundy, whether it's Williams, Wayne Williams down in Atlanta, or any of the others, or Charlie Manson. See, I don't comment about the other cases for the simple fact is that I wasn't there.
Do you feel somewhat of a kinship with some of these people?
God, I hate that when they put me in the same club with them. Because if I know that I didn't commit the crime, then I have been given the injustice, and so has the families. And nobody gives a damn about the families.
As though he cares, which clearly he does not. And when the families insist that John Gacy pay for his crimes with his life, his real feelings come out.
That one mother that gets on television all the time who thinks I should be given 33 injections, I think she ought to take 33 Valiums and go lay down. She goes on Geraldo show and all these other shows talking about, I think it's Maori, I think is the name. Her Marine son. Her Marine son, if her Marine son was so great, what the hell did he run away from home for all the time?
However, the scariest part of the interview was when Gacy showed off his rope trick, in which he creates a makeshift tourniquet. Whilst this may seem like a casual discussion about different types of knots, he often used this method to strangle his victims to death.
He says he was simply discussing knots in general. Catch his sense of humor.
Shoelaces, huh? You're in trouble now. Aren't you afraid sitting that close to me? What the hell? Oh, this is too long. You don't need it this long. This is hard trying to do this. Why don't you put your hand out? Okay, here. What I told him, I said, here, all you do is you wrap it around, you put one knot in it. And I said, then you put a second knot in it. Okay? I said, then you take a stick and stick it in here, and you just turn this. And I said, it causes a tourniquet. I said, that's the only knot I ever learned.
Precisely the kind of knot found on the ropes wrapped around the necks of the victims found under the house on Sunday.
Number 2. Profiles has been interviewed multiple serial killers. However, as we've already seen many attempts to manipulate and control the situation. A prime example of this was after Sharp convicted of murdering 11 sex workers over a span of just 21 votes in various interviews. He told Oppose the extreme and embellished details of it still unclear what was really true. Additional way, based on who the interviewer was, Sharp will try a different manipulative methods. For one, if he sends sympathy, he will speak about his childhood, as seen in this
For one, if he sends sympathy, he would speak about his childhood, as seen in this interview with psychiatrist Michael Stone.
I can remember back to when I was about 4. When I was 4, something happened to me with my mother. And that's when I was introduced to sex. Oral sex. And at 4. Just playing, right?
Yeah.
And when I started doing the same thing with my younger sister, well, I told my mother, I said, I love my sister Jeannie more than sister and brother, right? And she tried to convince me, no, it's not going to happen. You know, that's not right. Yeah, that's when she take a butcher knife to you and grab a hold of it, and she says, if you don't behave yourself, I'll cut it off.
You ever had thoughts that had to do with your mom, you know, where you really felt like dicing her, you know, or making pot roast out of her? Because it would be understandable, wouldn't it?
It would be understandable.
Sure it would. I mean, what you
thought, those thoughts were there.
Yeah. What about with the girl a couple months later? Was there something similar about that, or was that something that you had begun to think about?
Well, I was by myself.
Yeah.
And she showed up by herself. She was on top of the bridge. She started talking. I said, what are you doing down here by yourself? You know, she said, I go where you want to go. I pulled in my fishing poles and stuff, put them back up on the bike. And I started walking upstream, right? And she comes up there with me. And I don't know, just a spur of the moment.
She was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
Yeah. But there was a little bit of sexual stuff going on with her.
Right.
Yeah.
Shawcross admitted raping the girl before he killed her.
I was thinking about my sister Jeannie back.
Yeah, okay. Say a little bit more about that.
That's something I don't like to talk about.
If she was just in your mind, you know, kind of an equivalent symbolically of Jeannie, a person could say, well, she would be the last person you'd want to rough up.
When I realized what I did, you know, my only thought was to get rid of her.
Ah.